Hi everyone in YouTube land and wherever else you may be. This is my next video and I title it The Coronavirus and Fear. So just to do a recap of my previous one, back in the 90s I visited Amsterdam and went to the Anne Frank house, which is where a young girl and her family hid out during the Second World War. That townhouse was filled with photographs of the most inhumane actions humanity had perpetrated on itself. And when I left the townhouse, I began to do something called automatic writing. And that automatic writing would come to me throughout the night, during the day, consistently, and I placed the writings into a book form, which I call The Voice of the Soul. I'm going to be applying some of the contents of the Voice of the Soul to the question, or to this topic, which is the coronavirus and fear. And so let me diverge and go to the concept of fear. What exactly is fear? We've all felt it. We know the experience of it. It makes us extremely uncomfortable. It can paralyze us. It stops us from moving forward, that paralyzation. It's not an experience that most people would like to recreate. But what exactly is it? Fear is the anticipation of loss and pain. Somehow within ourselves, there is an element within us, emotionally and otherwise, wherein we are actually imagining or anticipating a future loss and pain. In certain cases, we could be experiencing that loss and pain with a sense that there is more to come. And so it's really the anticipation, ultimately, of pain. Under certain circumstances, fear can be useful. Our adrenaline goes up, we go into a certain mode, whatever it might be, protection mode, survival mode, fight mode, whatever it is. And for that instant, it can be useful. But as a lifelong event, it generally will prevent us from moving forward. Fear will act to one degree or another as a form of paralysis. And paralysis basically means you're in a state of non-functioning and non-action, or limited functioning and limited action, and you're not able to tackle or to do fully the things that you need to do. You're not able to feel or experience the things that you need to feel and want to feel and experience. That fear keeps you rooted in place. So on a day-to-day basis, how does one tackle fear, the anticipation of pain? Well, the answer to that has to do with the way our world has treated pain. That is to say, as my previous video indicated, that the way we handle pain is to pretend it doesn't exist, deny it, suppress it, get busy, put on a happy face, etc., etc. Anything except feeling the entirety of the pain lodged within us. And as I mentioned the other day in the other video, Many people will say, well, I feel pain. I know what that feels like. You do, to a certain extent, but the vast majority of that pain goes underground, is submerged in every cell of your being. The result of that is it will cause dis-ease. It can cause another form of paralysis. The pain will act as a block, preventing you from experiencing the beauties of life, the beauties of relationship, so much. But if one goes ahead and experiences and gets comfortable with their pain, feeling it throughout their entire being, and I will in my future videos also reference something called a pain transmutation meditation, which also came through from the Anne Frank House. And this is a guided meditation that enables us in a still, quiet space to go inward, to feel where throughout our whole body and our whole being we are holding on to pain, that suffocating pain, to release it. Because the release of that pain is what ultimately clears our vessel. It cleans our vessel, it clears us, and enables us to fill it with compassion, which is the bedrock of love, and therefore love. So, how do we handle fear? We handle fear by knowing our pain and feeling it to its entirety, and thereby releasing it. Because once we acknowledge it and feel it and release it, that suffocating, paralyzing anticipation of it will vastly be reduced. And therefore, that fear is something that can be handled and can be dealt with. So yesterday, I also talked about another aspect of this coronavirus situation, which is having to do with the fact that even when we are not in the state of restriction where we're having to be home most of the time, very few of us are actually in a deep, soulful state of appreciation for whatever benefits and values we have in our life. As I recounted before, being able to see is an extraordinary gift. Breathe, think, speak, hear, taste, touch, feel, experience. And bringing all those senses to the outer world of nature and relationships. These are extraordinary gifts. And then the benefits that we have, the blessings we have, no matter who we are, there are some blessings. There are blessings that we have in our life, and I've recounted some. And so I believe that this coronavirus is an opportunity, among others, to enable us to go inward and to recognize and go into a state of deep appreciation. Furthermore, in connection with that coronavirus and having us in a more or less isolated state, away from people for the most part, and when we go inward, there's something else to be considered, and that is when we speak, it is vital that our speech is spoken to empower others, to empower ourselves in our speech thought, so to speak. And so, to recount again, going back to my experience at the Anne Frank House and the book that was put together known as The Voice of the Soul, a page dedicated to something that was called the 12 Commandments came through, and one of those commandments had to do with speak to empower. So going back to my concept of what is fear, how do we deal with fear and the resultant pain, I'm going to read to you one of these from The Voice of the Soul, and it is titled appropriately, What is Fear? Fear is a gripping sensation when we're confronted with loss. We tend to hold on more tightly to that which we anticipate becoming separated from. We cling, misuse our finite energy to remain where we've been with what we've had. And so we lose the chance to experience a new dimension, another expedition that can only move us closer toward inner freedom. Fear is the anticipation of loss and pain, a state of expectancy for detachment from a loved or familiar thing that creates a grasping seizure. So there you have it, the in-depth description of the feelings that surround this emotion of fear. And as I mentioned, it is possible to handle it, to combat it, to deal with it, and to remove it and the consequent feeling of anxiety that goes along with fear. So for now, I will reiterate the points that have been made. One being that fear is the anticipation of pain. Pain can be a benefit. It is the blessing if it is felt in its entirety and released. And furthermore, we must speak to empower anyone we come in contact with, and we must speak to empower when we have the voice within our own mind coming through, so that the message we are saying to ourselves is, we can do this. It is possible. I will get through it. I will do it. It will be done. And so that's a bit of a synopsis of some of the points that I've made today and the other day. And for now, I wish you well, and I know that we can all get through what is happening now, and that it is for a greater purpose ultimately. God bless.